Ladies and gentlemen, there are few things that chess players enjoy more than finishing a game and clicking the button that allows an engine to tell us all the things we did right and wrong. It is the all-seeing overlord that basically will give us feedback on all of our chess decisions. Also, there's apple juice on my windowsill. Anyway, in this video, I'm going to show you a game that killed Stockfish. Our protagonists are two individuals hailing from Algeria and the United Kingdom. And this game is just, it's just a beautiful display of when even Stockfish, Leela, or whatever you use to analyze your games just needs a smoke break. I mean, it's the equivalent of a parent that has just had enough. And we begin the game with the move e4. And Black responds with e5. I love how in the beginning of these low elo games, sometimes even the first move is quite problematic. Knight f3, knight c6 though, and actually, thus far we are following relatively standard theory. Both players playing in Italian. White now has the option here to play the Evans Gambit. b4 is obviously a very legitimate and good weapon. Traditionally, White is playing for c3 and d4 or c3, d3. This is the gioco piano, d4, and d3 is the pianissimo, very quiet. But obviously, this wouldn't be a how to lose at chess playlist submission if White didn't blunder on move 4. So immediately, White is lost. You see what White is trying to do here is trying to play the fried liver. And that just doesn't work because, well, I mean, the knight has to come here. So you can't just pre-move your 4 moves. The knight blocks the queen's vision. When the bishop comes here, this just doesn't work at all. But Black doesn't see that. And now Black is actually losing. Black plays f6. Instead of taking the knight in one move, Black attacks the knight, and the knight can slide behind the pawn. You guys have to remember, just because you have 2 pieces staring at a square together, it doesn't mean that moving the pawn out of the way stops that. Like, White still goes knight to f7. Now we have queen e7, and obviously White takes the rook. What? Why queen h5? What? The entire purpose of this and this is to take material. Why don't you just do it? This is like, I don't know, this is like taking the bus like to your destination, arriving there, and then taking the bus back because you actually wanted something at the store that was halfway on the bus route. I don't know. I'm not speaking from experience here. I don't know why we're not taking the rook. The problem with bringing your queen into the battle is that it's very easy for Black to make their next move. Black is obviously going to attack your queen. The Black doesn't have to be 660 or 1660 or whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? So now White's like, oh, dang. All right, well, the good thing is I can just move my queen anywhere and I'm still going to win this rook. Okay, fantastic. Well, now White is losing. And you say, what? How is White losing? Well, this is very important for beginners. I mean, it's about 1,000, 1,100 when you start picking up these diagonal attacks very easily. It's the fact that, you know, when you leave your queen out like this, there are moves like d5, and if the bishop can smash your queen like this, wow, that phrasing could have been a lot better, because that can be applied to the... Wow, okay. d5 opens up the diagonal attack on the bishop smashing the queen here, and the pawn attacks the bishop, and on top of that, the queen now hits the knight, because it's not protected anymore. But obviously we have b5. b5 is a really interesting move. So now White is winning again. b5 is funny. You're trying to deflect the bishop and go danger levels. And I like what White does here. White still doesn't take the rook because this knight will be trapped and this bishop gets taken. So actually you don't win that much material at all. And White plays bishop d5. So bishop d5 is the luckiest move ever because you actually prevent d5 by physically preventing the, right? Like you can't do that anymore. So Black here plays queen f8, which is a move. White takes the rook in the corner. And now Black plays knight e7. Those were 3 of the more logical moves of this entire game. At this point, White plays an absolutely genius move. Rather than losing the knight for absolutely nothing, White plays a Desperado. You're going to lose the knight anyway, so you might as well grab something on the way out. All right, they're going to arrest you at the bank. Grab a dollar bill off the counter and put it in your pocket. Knight takes g6. Okay. Now here I would have liked to see short castle just in general. Good protocol for beginners. If you're just not really sure what to do, get the king to safety, finish your development, you're going to be in good shape. White plays knight c3. I don't hate this move at all. And here Black plays once again. We see this concept known as accidental genius. So here we have the move d6. Now d6 is an astoundingly bad move. I mean, it is so bad because first of all, not only do you hang this, you also hang this with check, and soon you are probably going to lose the rook as well. But have you guys been paying attention? When the d-pawn move, this white queen, which white just sort of absent-mindedly put there, is going to be under fire. Oop, I tried to cross my legs and instead I smashed my leg into my desk. A lot of stuff happening in this video, but obviously danger levels. What's worth more than a queen? You're worth more than a queen. Never stop believing in yourself. Bishop takes knight, obviously the king is worth more. But white, white was so focused on knight c3, obviously tunnel vision by the 680. You know, when you play knight c3, you see knight takes pawn. When you see d6, it's incredible how sometimes these 600 and 700 rated folks can just shut their brain off to everything else except, ooh, horse take pawn, me happy. Like, folks, every move, you have to look at what's going on. What did this change? Now the bishop is taking this knight for free, but why would we do this? Because now we have this. And now white sees that they can play bishop takes knight. Just kidding. White still has tunnel vision of the horse and plays knight takes c7 check. Now, the reason why knight takes c7 is not as good as bishop c6 is you win a full knight. It's not about taking the rook. Because, for example, if you do this, you're still going to be giving up the bishop for the rook. But knight takes, it's not as good. And let me tell you why. Because if you win the rook, you're not actually winning the knight, right? Because now just king d7. Right, king d7 protects the knight. That doesn't happen. King e7. Okay. Now, is it better to give up a knight for the rook, or is it better to win a bishop for the knight, win the knight for absolutely free? This is definitely the best move. Bonus question, rook c8 hits both pieces. How does white escape? Danger levels once again. Danger levels once again. You actually can save both pieces. You have to hop out with the horse and then move the bishop back. Now, you are still completely lost, but at least you didn't lose any material. So king e7 played, and white follows the journey. I love how white just has a bunch of pieces and just went boop, 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 boop. Just 5 moves with the knight. Okay, now the knight is dead, and now white probably should be castling, right? No. Now, let me explain why bishop takes knight is a terrible move. You're down material. You're down a lot of material, and it's not even the fact that you're down a lot of material. I mean, yes, you can say, okay, it's +2, but I mean, none of your pieces are playing. So while there's value of the pieces at the beginning of the game, you're not actually moving any of the pieces out. You should castle, get your pieces out. Why are you trading off the only active piece? It is the 16th move. You have 1 pawn that is not in a starting position. This is very bad. Very bad. But you have to protect it, so f3. f3 is a nice move. Now, at this point, the game is just about 6 or 7 moves away from checkmate. And the reason is that, well, obviously you save the bishop. The reason is that the pieces will just encroach the king. You just have to find a way to coordinate them. And that's it. You have to find a way to make the queen be protected and attack the king. Now, white plays here a very powerful move. If I give you 10 guesses, you will not be able to guess it correctly. And the move is a3. Yeah, the move is a3. Now, at this point, black probably plays the dumbest move of the game. And that's saying a lot because we're about to see a lot more dumb moves than this. And I say that with all due respect, and obviously it's mostly for humor. Folks, you have a queen, 2 bishops, and a knight, and 3 center pawns that are like ready to attack. Your move here better be with one of these big pieces. Knight f4, queen a4 to attack this pawn, bishop here to attack this, queen behind bishop, bishop and queen coming forward to the king. What the hell is a5? I can potentially give you a reason why white did not want b4 to come with the tempo. Who cares about tempo? You have a queen, 2 bishops, and the knight. What is this? Like, there needs to be an alert in y'all's brain. I don't know what the right grammatical thing is for y'all. d3, and now, thank you, bishop back to b6, opening up the queen. The queen is going to come into f2. White here plays bishop to h6. That move is so ludicrous and funny, it doesn't make any sense. And after queen takes c2, it's mate in 6. And it's mate in 6 because the king just can't castle in either direction. You never got your rooks going. The queen will hang out on the 2nd rank. The knight comes in. It's mate. It's mate somewhere, right? Instead of that, we have queen c5. Okay, I did literally just say that you should be putting the queen in front of the bishop. Excellent rerouting job there by black. White plays king to e2. Now you should obviously follow the path. Or queen c2, by the way. And black here, for some reason, does not want to follow the path, even though that was the entire purpose of playing Queen to c5 instead goes, oh, wait a minute, I can grab this pawn. Great. Bishop d2. Now, certainly we are not going to get checkmate in 4. If we were going to get checkmate in 4, then this would not make for a fun game. This would just be a very good game by black. Now, how do you win this with black? You can scoop up a couple more pawns, but you need to be very careful because the more time you spend doing nothing, I'm going to activate my rooks. It's very difficult in a position where you are completely winning and you know you're winning to think of counterplay for your opponent. Why would you do that? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You want to focus on your own attack. Well, then focus on your own attack. Go for the king. You can't get taken, and even if you can, you're fine. It's the king's only layer of defense. Where's the king going to go? If it moves away from the bishop, you take it. If it goes to e1, queen takes d3. I mean, who's stopping mate? The bishop comes in. Who stops mate? Nobody. You play knight f4, queen d3, the game's over. I mean, a chimpanzee can probably win this position with black. Okay, and that chimpanzee's rated about 450, so not too much lower. I mean, but here black plays an exceptional move, bishop to e3, which, believe it or not, is a full bishop blunder, and yet it's still force mate. So king takes c3. White's like, okay. I mean, black thought that they were attacking the pinned piece and forgot the king could capture. That does happen. Now, once again, if you play knight f4, you are threatening mate in 2. You're actually threatening queen back to c5. And all of the king's escape squares are covered. Queen c5 is a ridiculous move. Nobody looks backwards and diagonally. It's way too high level, but you need to bring the pieces toward the king. Now, I did just mention you do have the option of taking this pawn, but you don't want to because it's a bit of a slow move. And if anything, taking pawns where rooks can be active is a bad thing. This b pawn blocks the rook's vision. So be careful taking pawns like this. Queen b2, fine. Rook c1. Now again, bring the pieces toward the king. Love it. King e2, bring the pieces toward the... What is that? What is that? Why? For what? To take this and then go back to f4 anyway? Knight to f4. Ladies and gentlemen, please. At least if you're going to do knight to f4, bring the pieces toward the king. And it's crazy that knight h4 is a draw. That is actually one of the most ludicrous things about this. And Stockfish is out for a smoke break. It's a draw. Rook c7 check and rook c1. For example, if king d8 attacking this, you also have this absurd move. Lining up a discovered attack. So for example, you have check and you're going to win the game. It's insane. Check and then the pieces team up. Like for example, king back to e8. You have rook b1. And because you opened up the files, now my rooks are going to bully your king. Because your king actually can't be safe on the back rank. Insane. Of course, white doesn't see that. White plays rook b1. But still, rook b1 is only, it's only 0.9. It's a 0.9 advantage. Now, obviously here you see the rooks are coming down, so you have to go back and address that. No. Knight takes g2 as planned. And now we have the rooks arriving on the back ranks to check the king. No. For some reason, we go to c6. Why c6 and not c7? I don't know. 679 stuff. At this point, black should obviously come back with the knight and give a check, which they do. You can also get some breathing room for your king. If your king can escape and be kind of huddled around fellow pieces, the rooks are not going to be able to do anything. But don't get caught on the back rank. Knight f4 check, takes, and pawn takes f4. At this point, you are coordinating your pieces very well. When the queen arrives on e3, you are going to take pawns with check. So the king actually kind of intelligently steps out of the way. Queen f2 or queen e3 are both good. Queen f2 check, king out to c3. And taking on f3 is actually a little dangerous. Because again, there is rooks coming down here, but it's still winning. But black really likes to push stuff for no real reason at all, and plays the move d5. Now, the move d5 actually on its own isn't that awful. Black's logic was, well, if takes, then takes. I mean, that's good. Yeah, actually, it kind of makes sense. The bishop is strong, the rook is under attack. But the problem is that after d5, there is rook b7 check. And if the king moves anywhere to the back rank, rook takes bishop. And if the bishop blocks, somehow you cannot stop me from taking your bishop. You have all these checks, but my king just runs in a little, like, circle, and you just can't protect your own bishop. But this is a 600 rated game, so after king d8 is played, rook takes bishop is just completely available. But for some reason, we have rook to c7. And yes, folks, you are seeing that correctly. There is a mate in one. Black can play pawn d4 with the most accidental checkmate ever. The bishop covers the diagonal, the queen covers the squares behind and protects the pawn. All of the king's escape squares are absolutely covered. Pawn checkmate Frame that on your refrigerator. You can also play a lot of different moves. There are no mate threats. There are no mate threats. Rook b8, king c7. You can take on e4 and continue butchering. You can give some checks. You have to either give checks or take stuff at this point. You cannot make lazy moves. What is that? Why are we bringing the bishop back to the back rank? Fine. It's still winning. Fine. The rook has to go to a7 to keep the other rook protected. Fine. Now, you need to give some checks or take some stuff, okay? Now, the danger of having a king locked on the back rank like this with the bishop very passive is the rooks can swarm you from both directions, okay? So we have queen e1 check, okay? We have king up to d4. We have queen e3 check, and the king continues very confidently marching forward. Sometimes this is actually kind of a smart thing to do, especially as time ticks lower in a game. Just march the king up. Sometimes it freaks people out, and it's very difficult to find checks in very congested territory. The queen drops back to b6, and here white should obviously swing the rook over and try to escape. But white doesn't do that. White plays d4. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at that correctly. It is once again checkmate in one. If black just looked for a check, in fact, that bishop, instant replay a couple of moves ago, literally stood on that square. And if that bishop had just gone back to that square, by accident, it would have been mate. Black has two opportunities to win this game absolutely accidentally, but obviously they're up a queen and a bishop, so they will win this game anyway, and the king is locked away in the center of the board. Okay, fantastic. Now, what do? You have to give a check. Or, folks, if you don't know what to do, take the damn rook. Just take the rook. This is the easiest way to win a game. Just leave the king with the pawns, and you have a bishop. You are the big kid on the playground. You're going to go bully all the pawns. But, folks, here, black once again plays a random pawn move. This might officially be the worst move of the game. Black plays h5. Let me tell you something right now. If you have a king in the middle of the board and you are not actively thinking, can I check the king or can I take those annoying rooks? I don't know what to tell you. Chess might not be the game. Chess might not be the game, okay? White now plays e5, accidentally escaping with the king from the depth from checkmate. Black plays f5. So now bishop e6 is a mate again. White plays e6, completely blundering the fact, by the way, that this can be taken. But still, king e5 or king c5 escapes. We have we have queen e6, we have king c5. Now, black has no more pawn moves, right? Black has no more pawn moves, so now it's time to start checking this king somehow. But you know what's crazy? There are no checks. Somehow, because of how carelessly black played this position, there are no checks on this board. You cannot check the king, which is when you begin to freak out. Because you're very worried of bringing the queen down here and blundering some sort of mate, even though the rooks have been absolutely stagnant for about 10 moves, and there is absolutely no mate available, unless the rook finds a way to swing over. And the more time that you give the player with the white pieces time to figure stuff out, I say the more time you give the player with the white pieces time, I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm trying to speak really fast for dramatic effect, but black is scared. Black has no checks. So what does black do? Push the damn pawn again. Push the pawn again. Now, white, stuck with almost no pieces remaining, finds rook to h7, and now this is a problem because rook to h8 is threatened, and the queen is going to have to find a way to stop it. But it's very, very important how you actually prevent this. For example, queen f6 was played in the game, but you have to go to the back rank. You have to go to the back rank. Why? Because if you play queen to f6, you now have much less space, and the move rook a, f7 wins the game. Because not only is your queen hanging, you have to abandon rook to h8, which is mate, and you still have no checks because of how carelessly you played this position. But obviously, white doesn't do that. White plays rook a to g7, threatening rook g8 or rook h8, and black, with 30 seconds on the clock, stalls out, unable to find a defense for mate. There is one and only one, and it is queen f8 check. The third check that black could have played to save this position, or potentially checkmate in one, but instead of that, black chose absent-minded pawn moves, and the perseverance of our protagonist from Algeria, the diamond, served them well, and they won a game. And Stockfish definitely died after watching this one.